About giant teeth. In the time of King Richard, near Essex, on the coast of the sea, in a town called Foulness, there were found 2 teeth of a certain giant, of such size that 200 teeth that men now have could be cut from them. And we saw these teeth at Coggeshall, and we were quite amazed. A rib of the same giant was found there, of incredible size and breadth. A gigantic head was also found on the shore of the sea, on a province in York, the shell of which was capable of holding a great deal of grain. And all this testifies to the truth that is read in the ancient histories about gigantic bodies. Some of our men also saw at Wales a certain young man of immense stature, whose height was 5 cubits, and his fingers were exceedingly long and thick, but he was deprived of his strength by some accident in his youth. In the same province that year, human footprints of unusual length appeared on a grassy plain, and wherever the footprints had been impressed, the grass had remained, as if scorched by fire. So, what do you make of that? Of the discovery of fossils, all from the point of view of a monk during the 12th century. Ralph of Coggeshall, written in his Chronicon Anglicanum. He's the abbot of Coggeshall Abbey in Essex, which isn't too far from Foulness, even by 12th century standards, Foulness being an island on the coast. And it would have taken Coggeshall and his monks a boat to cross over into. It would be easy to dismiss it if it wasn't for our present-day knowledge of fossils, and the abbot himself had personally seen and handled these fossils. There is also mention of a tall man and a footprint. We often speculate as to how the medieval mind could cope with the discovery of prehistoric bones of long extinct animals, whether dinosaur or extinct mammal, long before Darwin or Mary Anning. But given that we control the Essex coast and the Naze for fossils, it's a given that bones didn't just prop up around the 19th century. Here we read that Ralph of Coggeshall, being a deeply religious man, confirms his own beliefs about antediluvian giants in the scriptures of the Old Testament. From his point of view, he is seeing more than enough to put away any doubts he had about what is told in Genesis. This is the equivalent of Eric von Daniken discovering a flying saucer with blueprints for the Great Pyramid. But for the rest of us, it's interesting to find that these bones were cropping up all the way throughout history, no doubt even prehistory. Sometimes these bones appear to have been mistaken for truly gruesome creatures. Imagine the chap that found a mammoth skull in the desert. Clearly a cyclopean monster, taller than a house. The discovery of different species of animals, no doubt responsible for the chimerical creatures like the griffin, which could possibly have taken inspiration from Protoceratops. Just add wings, and who's to say the bones of another flying bird-like creature wasn't found nearby? Ancient beings long gone, dragons, or worse. Anything the imagination could fill in. I mean, just look at the dinosaurs from the Victorian age. unrecognisable when compared with their modern-day illustrations. Imaginations ran wild, as they always do. Just look at any documentary about what life might be like on other planets. Humans have always had vivid imaginations. Unfortunately, old Ralph was of sober mind and not the type to fall into delusions of fantasy. Hence, when looking at two teeth the size of cricket bats, he assumes giants and not other biblical creatures, such as the behemoth or leviathan. Also, we learn a rib. A colossal creature, and do remember that Coggeshall would not have seen an elephant outside of an illustration. And those illustrations are dubious at best. Even us nowadays, we're highly familiar with dinosaurs. From school books to Jurassic Park, the average 10-year-old can tell the difference between a sauropod and a theropod, long before they can tell the difference between a scooter and a moped. But Jurassic Park don't have any velociraptors in it, not a single one. Those things that rip apart people in the movie, they're nothing like a velociraptor, they're more like a Deinonychus. So even our perception of dinosaurs is warped. So I'm not going to delve into various explanations of what this could be. It's clearly a bloody fossil. And it's clearly not a bloody giant. But what was it? Unfortunately, we don't have the fossils anymore. That's pretty much vanished into the fog of history. But we can have an educated guess. These two teeth were most likely tusks of a huge elephant-type creature. Most likely a mammoth. Coggeshall doesn't give measurements, only that 200 teeth amount to its mass. He wasn't exactly using the metric system. It's like saying a fish was the same length of 5 corgis. Anything but metric, right? And there's no point of working out how much mass 200 teeth would be, as Ralph was just given a random number. It could also be exaggerating. After all, he has a good sense of humour. He describes hailstones the size of donkey's eggs during a storm once. Donkey's eggs, yes. He knows donkeys don't lay eggs, he's been a funny bugger. So this 200 teeth, got no idea what it could be. Okay, I did Google it. Around 1 gram on average for a human tooth, so 200 teeth would be less than a pound. Given that mammoth tusks weigh about 400 pounds, there is no way this is a mammoth tusk. Not even close. 100 teeth looks like this. Just double it. Ralph is an educated man. I doubt he doesn't know the difference between 200 teeth and 200,000 teeth. He's probably not weighed teeth, he's using his eyes. So he's not imagining the man the size of King Kong, but much smaller. Could be the tooth of some prehistoric shark, but they are quite popular in Essex, and the untrained eye cannot tell the difference between a prehistoric shark and a modern counterpart. Not much that difference, to be honest, anyway. The only actual dinosaur found is Polycanthus, a type of ankylosaur. Not exactly famous for their teeth. But notice the spikes? But these buggers weren't colossal. So, could a spike be mistaken for a tooth? It wouldn't be the first time a spike had been mistaken, as one could be forgiven for mistaking a spike for a shark tooth. Unfortunately, we've established shark teeth are common, and Ralph is not saying this is a shark. We don't even know the shape of the tooth. Long and narrow, wide and pointed, wide and blunt. Or do we? As the abbot is convinced this is from a man. So we can rule out anything long and sharp, right? Unless Ralph is assuming humanoids with giant tusk-like teeth, like some sort of super orc. My money is on flatter, looking more like a human tooth. So what prehistoric creatures were trolling around Essex during the Paleolithic? Many, it turns out. Animals like rhinos and hippos. Now we're talking. Creatures with flatter teeth, much smaller than a mammoth. Though, if we're ruling out long and sharp, doesn't mean it can't be a mammoth. Oh, and then we have the man from Wales, Ralph mentioned. He stood at 5 cubits, which is over 7 feet tall, which is a lot more sobering than the giants mentioned. Basically the same height as Andre the Giant, or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
You play basketball?
Kevin Peter Hall, and Peter Mayhew, i.e. Chewbacca. And if you know your Bible, all of these names I've mentioned are taller than Goliath, who stood just under 7 feet tall. Highly impressive nonetheless. This Welsh chap would have definitely been known in his area, and he fits into this category, so it's not out of humanity to be this tall. As for the footprints, I'm going with hoax. There were clearly talks of giants. A contingent of monks had turned up in the area looking for giants. Ralph has made it pretty obvious he's looking for the evidence of giants, from the Welsh chap to trawling for fossils on the coast. I wouldn't put it past a couple of peasants, pranksters, to come up with something daft. Hoax for publicity. And it would not be the first time that this has happened. This reminds me of an episode of Least Haunted. Basically, they were trolling a graveyard, complete with marked van and everything. The presenters were startled by some obvious ghost noises. Yeah, basically, some local scallies had decided to take the piss, and you could see them in the background being pillocks. The presenters tried to sell it to keep the illusion up, but it was funny. And this is an unfortunate byproduct into ghost hunting and paranormal investigation. Being trolled by some bloke from down the pub. And poor old Coggeshall was no exception. I mean, we've seen things like the crop circles, where they were clearly done by men with boards. And poor old Coggeshall was no exception. Though I do absolutely believe that the fossils they found were genuine. They were just not giants. Some prehistoric beast that they knew nothing of, in a day and age when the concept of an extinct species was alien to them. So, there we have it. I just thought I'd share this little odd story from the Chronicon Anglicanum. But the Vikings were in England for quite a long time. So, who's saying there isn't still some Jötnar lurking around somewhere in the hilly mountains of the British Isles? Thank you for watching.